Part four, death and dementia. Where I left off last time, our older brother had died, and we began dealing with that. What happens with that is at the same time you're dealing with the funeral and basically disposal of the body and what you're going to do with the services and things like that. Also, dealing with his house and all of his possessions. And thirdly, dealing with his estate. And I mentioned in the last video about the reasons that I got a will and then ultimately I got a trust. Our older brother had done none of that, so he wasn't married, he didn't have any kids, and he never got a trust, never got a will, never really told anyone what he wanted done with his remains, and didn't even put down beneficiaries on a lot of stuff. So I got to split it up into three different kind of segments. This one I'll talk about the funeral and what we had to do for that. And I just kind of want to go over again that our older brother, good man, and I'm not trying to disrespect him in any way, but he died because he didn't take care of himself. He never smoked, he never used any tobacco product in his entire life. He never used any illegal drug in his entire life. He didn't drink to excess at all. We went through his house, there was no alcohol at all there. And so he did a lot of the things that you're kind of supposed to do. But like I said, fast food, never working out. If that's your lifestyle, then that's good for you. That's your lifestyle. But I understand you're going to die from it. And I'm not a doctor. I watched it happen. And it's sad on our end of it. The last good conversation I had with him when we thought he was going to die with that first surgery. First time I told him in my life that I loved him, and I'm glad I did. I'll try to attach a video to this somewhere in this video here. Old cowboy friend of mine, Tommy Sondgroth, did a video before he died, which was, I want to say five or more years ago, talking about saying love you. And I'm not really good at it. I'm getting better at it, but looking back, I'm glad I was able to at least tell our older brother that I loved him before he went. So the funeral home, Mom and Dad wanted our older brother to be put to rest at the same place Grandma and Grandpa were, and they also wanted to have a plot next to him. And so I ended up calling the same funeral home that I had dealt with my grandfather and grandmother. And I should have known or thought about it then that if they were dipshits 20-something years ago, they're probably going to be the same. But I didn't think about it at the time. And called down there. They picked him up from the hospital. They said no one needed to identify him because he was identified at the hospital. And we're kind of thankful for that. A day or so later, they called and said we need to have someone identify his body. None of us really wanted to. And I know some people, whether it's culturally or just how some people deal with things, some people need to see that open casket and all that. And if that's your thing, go forth and conquer, and good for you. Do whatever you need to do to deal with those emotions. It's not my thing. And like I mentioned before too, before my career, I had worked for a body removal service, and then I had a 27-year career. So over the course of my life, I'd probably seen 2,000 or 3,000 dead bodies, and it's disturbing. Even after you see a lot of them, it's disturbing, and especially when it's somebody that you love and care about. So I went down to identify him, and kind of lessons learned. If you do it, be prepared that that's how you're going to picture the person for either from then on or for a long time. And I identified him, and the funeral home gave him a goatee. He didn't have a freaking goatee. but I'm guessing he just didn't shave in the hospital, and they had to do something. We weren't allowed to visit him in the hospital because of COVID. So you remember things like that, and when I picture him now, I can picture him how he was, but the first thing that pops into my mind is where I went to identify him. So if you are going to do that, be prepared to deal with that for a very long time. Uh, Also, be prepared. I wear T-shirts most of the time, and I remember getting home from identifying him, and my wife said, "Hey, how you doing? How'd it go?" And I said, "Yeah, it was what it was. It wasn't pleasant, but had to do it." And she kind of stepped back and looked at what I was wearing. She said, "You going to work out or something?" And I said, "No, I just walked in. Yeah, I was wearing a shirt that said "Embrace the Suck." And I walked by all these people, these people that were going to a funeral themselves. So maybe if you're gonna do that, don't be like me and I don't know, wear a collared shirt or something like that. But so I had to do that. My surviving brother and I then started dealing with the arrangements once again, so mom and dad could just deal with each other. And they drove us around to try to look for a spot. Mom wanted as close as they could get to where grandma and grandpa were. And I remember driving around with in the little golf cart there, and there was a statue, it was probably 2.5 foot tall. And the guy said, "Oh, that can fit four remains. It's you get them in a back from the crematorium in a box like this." And I go, "Yeah, that looks pretty cool. That's fine, and it's the same area." And he goes, "Okay, that's $40,000." I go, "It's $40,000 for this fucking little statue for dead people." And so I don't know if you can tell by looking at me, I'm not a guy that has $40,000, especially $40,000 to spend on a dead guy. No disrespect, but he's dead. He's not going to appreciate the 40 grand. I don't have it. We're not from a rich family. If you have 40 grand to throw away, God bless you in your quest, and good for you. But I think most people are in the position that we are, that I didn't have 40 grand in the bank. I still don't, and I don't think I probably ever will. My brother didn't, my parents didn't, and none of us had that kind of money. So we had to move on. And as I mentioned before too, a lot of these places, or some of these places, are very good. Some of these places do care about you. I've worked with those places. But some of them kind of, and this is my impression of this one now that I've been to several times, they know they got you. You have to get rid of a body. And what else are you going to do? They're going to gouge. And we finally settled on a couple places in the wall where mom and dad could be right next to our older brother. And those two little spots were like $13,000 or $14,000 combined. But then you're looking at the cost of, to open it up in order to put the person in is another cost, several $100s. And then to put a plaque with their name on it, that's several more $100s. And then to close it, that's several more $100s. And so every little bit is just going to gouge and gouge and gouge. And what are you going to do about it? And then we had to cremate him. To get him in those spots, you have to cremate him, and that's kind of what our family does. And cremation was about $5,000. And so just be prepared to get your freaking wallet out. Once again, with none of us ever really having a whole lot of money and not being rich people, my brother and I were trying to handle this without mom and dad as much as we could. All this was going on credit. And understand, in the meantime, we're dealing with the estate, same exact time, and we're dealing with the house, trying to get ready to sell that house. And so everything is going on a line of credit. And eventually, someone's going to have to freaking pay that off, and you had to figure that out down the road. With the cremation, too, they asked what kind of container we wanted him in when he was cremated. That just sounds stupid to me. Apparently, you can buy like a $20,000 casket and have him cremated in that, which is, if it's your thing, it's your thing, but it's being burned. So it all ends up in a box this big. It sounds stupid to me. And I go, we don't need to put them in anything. And I said, well, regulations and, typical government bullshit, they have to be in some kind of container. And so I go, what's the cheapest thing you got? And I said, well, we do have a cardboard container. And they have this container. It's not a cardboard box. It's a freaking box. And I go, can I just, I figure I'll go down to Home Depot. I'll tape a couple together. You're burning it. And no, it has to be their cardboard box that's made like the size of a body. And 150 freaking dollars for a cardboard box. That lasted all of, I'm guessing, 3 seconds when they turn the flames on. And so be prepared for these just little idiotic gouges that are going to happen. So after we end up picking the spot and buying his cardboard box, they went through a couple weeks, or well, probably about a week of phone calls trying to figure out the arrangements. At the time, it was during COVID, so you couldn't have groups of people, the whole 6 foot nonsense and all that stuff you had to do, and you couldn't have more than 20 or 30 people, whatever it was, in this place. So that was kind of a pain in the ass, but hopefully you won't have to deal with that unless there's another nightmare like that going on. And Mom wanted prayer cards, the little cards that you send out the funeral arrangements on that have a prayer. And so I asked the lady who had been helping us for some prayer cards. Right, I sent her an email first, where I'd made the mistake. You do have to pay your bills, but I'd already paid her. And come to find out, shouldn't have been surprised, but I was. As soon as you write that check, they don't give a shit anymore. At least this place, don't care. And so over a period of about 2 weeks, I'm sending her emails. I'm calling her for these prayer cards, and I'm trying to help my mother. And I even went down there a couple of times, but she wasn't available for us. Ultimately, my wife ended up doing the prayer cards online. I think it only cost her a few bucks or something like that, but she got them done outside of the funeral home. So I couldn't get a hold of this lady, so I finally called the manager. And the manager, really nice young lady, she was actually extremely helpful. And I let her know about the frustrations of this gal not answering my calls, my emails, me showing up after I already paid her. And I said, I only want to deal with you from now on, because the manager was nice and seemed to be helpful. And she was fine with that. I said, where's the fingerprint necklace? So when we first brought him in there, my surviving brother said, let's have his fingerprint taken. I guess it's a service to have, and you can put it on a necklace for Mom. I go, yeah, sounds great idea. And so we had ordered that at the beginning. And so I'd asked this manager, I just want to make sure the fingerprint necklace is done. We're dealing with the arrangements for the service, and we've already got the spots picked. And so she checks on it a day or two, something like that later. She calls me while I was at work and says, hey, can we talk? Which is never going to be good when a woman says that, especially. But yeah, hey, can we talk? Do you have some time? Yeah, what's going on now? And so turns out her dipshit employee never took the fingerprint or thumbprint. He'd already been cremated, so there's no way to really unfuck that. A bit frustrated. Yeah, I wasn't happy. I was pissed. It wasn't this lady's fault. And I did tell this lady, this manager, it's not your fault, I understand. It's the dipshit that works for you who did this. And there's no way to unscrew it. Absolutely. He's a pile of ash at that point. And so I mentioned in the other video too, micromanage. And there are some things you're not going to avoid. The night before they cremated him, the manager, sorry, not the manager, the other gal, had called me, and I didn't know at the time, called my surviving brother separately. And hey, we're going to cremate him tomorrow. Do you want to come view him? No. We said, no, we don't. And both of us asked, did you get the fingerprint? She said, yeah, we got the fingerprint. You're good to go. And no, you didn't. So you do need to micromanage, but understand that some things are going to fall through the gaps. It's not going to go, the way you want it to. And there are certain things like this that you're just going to have to deal with. There's no way to undo it. So, anyways, yeah, they cremated him. They end up handing well, they said they cremated him. They end up handing me or showing us a box that he's supposedly in, and my surviving brother and our dad watched him be interred in the wall, and mom wasn't up to it, and so that was kind of the whole funeral process condensed. The whole thing took 3-4 weeks, and by that point we were probably close to $20,000 out of pocket, which once again was all going on credit that we didn't have. Once again, not making these too long, so the next one I'll talk about either the house or the estate. In the meantime, God bless you all, and God bless the United States of America.